You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Return guest today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Building Culture, the man with all the bricks, Mr. Austin Tunnell.
Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here again. It's been a little over a couple years, I think. It
has, yes. If people are listening and they haven't heard Austin's story, go back to episode 364. That's where we kind of dive into your origin story, how you get into the business, who you are, what you do, blah, blah, blah. All the kind of cool stuff. The context stuff, I will say. But today, we're just going to recap. I think when we last talked, you had just moved to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, I was living in Carlton Landing buildings. We were moving in 2020. Mm-hmm. Perfect time to move when COVID's hitting and
of course,
and starting a business over. It was not a very fun couple of years.
And you had a baby on the way, or you just had a baby?
Yeah, we had a baby in April 2020, so COVID baby, and then we got a new one on the way at March 2024.
Congratulations! It's amazing.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
So during that time, you were kind of got your start. You were up at Carlton Landing doing great, brickwork up there.
Yeah.
And then you kind of moved to Oklahoma City to do some more stuff. And it was like maybe some wheeler projects, some stuff in Heritage
we started
Hills.
building a wheeler.
Yeah. Talk me through all that stuff. How's that gone from, just the last 2 years?
Boy, honestly, the way I described it is 2020 through 2022 have been some of the hardest years of my life.
Okay.
So I moved to Oklahoma City with just my wife at the time. And I was splitting time finishing some stuff in Carlton Landing in 2020 and then trying to get going in a new place, and you don't know anyone, there's limited money, and building is all about relationships and vendors and clients and subcontractors and banks and appraisers and city. So you're having to learn all that at once. But then COVID hits and then supply chains get crazy. And while it sounds good for building because, there's all these builders selling things for twice what they, because there was just so much demand. Well, when you're starting over, I would call 40 cabinet shops and they'll be like, we're not even talking to you if you're not an existing customer, and we're 40 weeks out. When I went to start my first house in Wheeler, usually we pour the foundation, get our brick on site because it's a lot of brick. It's like 180 pallets of brick. So you can't you got to be very careful with logistics. So I call them and say, hey, I'm ready for the brick. And they said, we just got a call from the plant. We're 12 months out. So day one, I can't do anything. Some people can build a house and do stuff inside and then brick it later, but we do brick first, being a structural masonry house. So that was just one thing. I've had liens. I've had tens of thousands of dollars stolen from me. I've had mold issues on remodels. I've had appraisals. It's just been absolutely brutal. And then I got hit by a bus and damaged my foot and 2 years of 4 surgeries and later and good bit. I've learned to walk again with pain and kind of just started. You saw me on a cane coming in here, so I'm actually just kind of moving into acceptance, you could say. Okay. That this is kind of my new reality, at least for the time. I'm still hopeful that maybe I could get it better over time, but this is where I'm at now.
Gosh, so much to unpack. Tell me about Wheeler. How does that come about? And obviously, like, it kind of fits the same model as Carlton Landing, but Wheeler was just kind of there wasn't much brick in Wheeler at the time. Even though they're great looking houses, obviously you've introduced that. So tell me about that.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to build there. Blair Humphrey, obviously they did Carlton Landing, the Humphreys did Carlton Landing, and so they were familiar with my work, and they invited me to build in Wheeler, and I absolutely jumped at the opportunity. There's no neighborhood I think I would rather be building in than that one. It's and a lot of people don't understand it yet because it's still being just like built out, you know what I mean? But I lived in Carlton Landing for 4 years, so know where it's going and know the life experience of what neighborhoods like that can do. So it's been really fun to build in a cool context, because to me it's not just about the individual houses, but the neighborhood, the urbanism. And I call urbanism is the recipe. If urbanism is the recipe, buildings are the ingredients. You need both to have a good meal. Mm-hmm. So that's what I love about Wheeler. It's urban design focused, it's people focused, and then we also get to build great architecture there. And what's so cool is, when you sell a house and then people become part of a community, it's really exciting, and we go there sometimes it's just so cool when you have a center to a neighborhood. And then you get all these people just hanging out, and there's a playground out there, and there's beer, and there's coffee, and there's tacos, and it gets crowded on a Friday night, and you can walk 5 minutes away and it's super quiet in your residential area, and you go over there and it's lively and vibrant. It just reminds me of how much I wish more neighborhoods had centers, to them. I don't want to live next to a bar, right? I'm 35, I got kids now, but I want to be able to walk to a coffee shop, hang out with people, casually, and it's really hard the way we build today. Mm-hmm. So I love building in Wheeler. Yeah,
talk to me more about that kind of urbanism concept, because it is a lot, it makes me feel comfortable, because that's kind of what home is like, right? Like, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are built around it's like a center, right? And then in the center and some of them are so big, you might have a school in there, you might have a grocery store, you have a pub, maybe 2 pubs, you have like a fish and chip shop, cliche, shocker. And then you might have some stores in there as well, right? Or a pharmacy or whatever it is. Like, you have that center, and then you have, some of the ones that are bigger have like 500 homes around them. Yeah. Whereas we're now slowly getting into the smaller scale ones. So where does that come from? Why does that intrigue you? And obviously the brick side of it too.
Well, I think, it's really a continuation of the human tradition of building. And it's really centered around people first. And what I mean by that is the design and the decisions that are made. It's a much more complex way to design and build, because everything is a little bit tighter, and then the details start mattering a lot more. Privacy starts having to be designed rather than just happening automatically, because you've just got a bunch of space, right? And privacy is really important. And so when I start talking about urbanism, sometimes people get really scared, saying everyone should live in apartment buildings, or no one should have cars. And I'm like, that is not what I'm talking about at all. I really don't like apartment buildings very much. I think we need some, and maybe we need those in Midtown and things like that. But that's not what I mean when I mean urbanism. I just mean things like, for example, in Wheeler, a diverse range of housing. And here's an example. They've got houses that sell for $300,000. And I know that some people might say, well, that's too expensive. I can afford a $300,000 house. Why don't they have cheaper stuff? Okay, fine. It's really hard to build cheap stuff today, I should say, by the way. But, they've got $300,000 houses, and they've got $1.5 million houses and everything in between. They've also got ADUs and garage apartments that you can rent out or use your home office. They've got fourplexes and live-work units you can rent for $1,200. They've got an apartment building coming. And what's so cool about that is you can get such a diverse range of people within a single neighborhood. So you can get people in their 20s that are single and want to be there because it's cool and vibrant. It's easy to meet people. You can get families that have kids and want to live there because their kids can be free range kids. And this is my definition of a good neighborhood, is when you can have free range kids. And what I mean by that is just kind of kids out and about. It's not at the playground. The whole neighborhood's the playground. And Wheeler's still under construction, so that's kind of limited a little bit, but that will just expand more and more as it gets better. And then guess what? You also can have older people, so multi-generational living. And it's not that you don't have cars. People in Wheeler don't have cars. Of course they do. But they can do a lot more without a car. And as Wheeler gets built out more, you're going to be able to live more of your life in a smaller radius. And I've been thinking about this a lot because when I lived in Carlton Landing, I knew more people than I had ever really known at any given time in my life. I don't mean they were all best friends, because you're really limited capacity for best friends, but this was my understanding. It kind of flipped how I thought about community. I used to always think about community was the neighborhood dinners, the HOA thing, some big event. And I'm realizing it's not the big things. Those work, and those are great additions. Community is actually the small things. It's the small touches, the small interactions, the small, like seeing people on the walks, taking out the trash, going to get your mail, grabbing a coffee at the gym, checking out somewhere. When you're interacting with the same people over and over again, maybe a couple times a week or a few times a month, you don't know everything about them. You don't know their politics. You don't know, but that's actually a good thing because we can't get along with everyone. Like the people I'm going to invite into my home to have dinner with, I don't want to have such limited time, and two, they're probably going to be my good friends. But like, how do you have community outside of that? Well, basically, we have like really good friends and family and some work colleagues and nothing in between. And I think that's part of the problem. So when I say community, it's all these opportunities for small touches. Because when you live in a neighborhood like mine, which is a great neighborhood. I love it. It's in some ways I love it, I should say. Linwood, great old neighborhood, 7,000 square foot lots, 2,000 square foot houses a lot. And I know the neighbors directly around me, and we get along really well because I'll take out the trash and I'll see them, right? And then there's a park we can walk to that's a ways away, but like I never see anyone. And so when there's the 2 HOA events a year, I go and it's like a little awkward because you don't remember the last time you're like, I recognize you, but I don't even remember your name and I don't remember what you do. And it just, and so that's what I like about Wheeler. It's an invitation all the time. You don't have to. That's what the porches are for. You can wave at people if you want, or you can not if you don't want. It's not about being all up in each other's business. Like people think that. It's like my wife is an introvert, I'm an extrovert, and we both love living in Carlton Landing because of that. So,
no, you're right, and it's just like that whole kind of the walkability side of things, right? If you want to go and walk to the pub and see the same person who just goes for a beer every night, or you're someone's riding around on their bike or going for a run or whatever it is, right? It's just that repetitive kind of routine of seeing people doing, and everyone has their own routine too, right? You probably have some people who get up and walk their dog I walk my dog at the same time every single morning, for the most part. And so like if people see me in the morning, they'll know, that's the guy with the 2 golden doodles, right? But at Wheeler, it's like you see that guy and you might see him at the pub or the coffee shop. Like you're going to keep seeing him because everything you do is there. And I love that because
it's so important.
Such a cool neighborhood.
To me, it takes the beyond just an economic transaction. I'm going into Clarity Coffee in Wheeler to get a coffee. That's great. I want coffee. I'm going there to consume coffee. There's nothing wrong with consumption. We all have to consume stuff. But then I walk in and it's a smile and people are, saying, oh, hey, how's it going? And, we chat for a second and I get my coffee and I sit down and then someone walks in that I know and we chat for a second. It's such a richer experience. Same with the Big Friendly. Same with Taco Nation. I don't even know the people's names that I check out with the Taco Nation, but like I know we recognize each other. And so there's like a smile and there's a recognition. And that's so much different than driving through a Scooter's drive-through. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying no one should ever do that. Like, right, I get drive-through sometimes, but just to understand that like the way that we build really does shape how we live and interact with each other. And the way that we build pushes everything towards a purely consumption economic transaction where it's not about you and me. It's not about a relationship. It's how does Scooter's Coffee funnel as many cars through as fast as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. And that's the value. That's it, and